Bye.
Hey everybody, welcome to Knock Knock Eye with me, your host, Dr. Glockenflecken, your one-stop shop for all things eyeball related. I got a little bit of eyeball stuff today. Had a varied and interesting clinic this morning. Lots of stuff from all different parts of the eye, the retina, the cornea, the cataract. Lots of good cataracts today. And so I'll tell you a little bit about that later on in the episode. I wanted to start though. This is my first time recording since the big beautiful bill, the OBBB. I think the one big beautiful bill, right? Just one of them was passed by the House and Senate and sent to the president's desk. And so I thought I'd just start with my comments about this because it does relate a lot to healthcare. So the first off is the Medicaid cuts, which I think are pretty bad, to say the least. It's going to limit. It's going to kick a lot of people off of Medicaid, and lots of obviously low income folks, but a lot of kids too. And so I think it's a terrible idea. I think what they could have done is tried to make Medicaid a little bit more efficient. Um, One of the big problems that a lot of physicians have with Medicaid is the amount that it reimburses physicians for the work they do. There's a lot of money in Medicaid that goes to people that aren't doing a lot of like the work of medicine. Right? You get a lot of very high payments that are given off to hospitals. Not that hospitals shouldn't make some money, because obviously there's a lot of work on Medicaid patients that's being done in the hospital. So they should get some money, but it's really disproportionate to the point where a lot of physicians, especially in private practice, who maybe don't work in a hospital, um, they they stop seeing Medicaid patients. Now, I'm in a large physician-owned practice, private practice, and we see Medicaid patients. We see all patients. But it's true that you'll just get less money for the work you do through Medicaid. And I do see it though, as seeing Medicaid patients as like a public good for your community. There's part of it. I mean, we're still getting paid to do the work, just probably not what we feel like we should get paid. But again, part of it's just like these patients. This is what all they can afford in our healthcare system, and so you do it just for kind of a societal good. We also have the good fortune in my practice to be a large practice. And so, if we have an influx of a lot of Medicaid patients, it's not going to break our budget. Like, we're gonna be okay. But I can totally see, solo docs in certain private practices, certain areas that it may just not be sustainable to, like, keep your practice open, especially if you're practicing in a place that has a lot of Medicaid patients. And so you'll see people just leave that area, go practice somewhere else, or choose not to open up a practice in a certain area. And so anyway, there's a lot that goes into just Medicaid and how it functions, but anything that's going to like force people off of Medicaid or where they won't qualify for Medicaid when they otherwise should, that's a big problem. And so a lot of states are going to have a big problem with this. It doesn't kick in, I think, until 2027, interestingly, after the midterms. Wonder what that's all about. Anyway, but the thing I wanted to talk a little bit more about, is the cap on federal student loans. So this is interesting. This is a lot of discussion on social media, especially in the medical field, about this and the impact that it's going to have. A lot of people don't seem to understand that there's a big disconnect between people that actually have gone to med school, who just know a thing or two about the finances of medical school and loan repayment, versus like the general public, as is the case with almost anything in medicine. That's part of why my content is so popular, is because I take the complicated things like healthcare system stuff and explain it to people that anybody can understand for the most part, except some of the inside jokes. But that's what I try to do. And so it's I think it's helpful to look at things like this, like med student loans, and talk about it. And so I think that basically the big beautiful bill, it caps federal student loans. It's like a lifetime federal loan cap for graduate school, including medical school, at 200,000. And the reaction, I would say, from most physicians and med students and residents in particular, the immediate reaction was, well, what is that going to accomplish? Because I think a lot of people feel like this cap will result in med schools reducing their tuition. First of all, when in the history of anything healthcare related has something gotten cheaper? Like you guys, that's not going to happen. All right. There's no incentive for for med schools to lower tuition. Now, will it keep tuition from escalating at the rate that it's escalating? Possibly. Like when I came into Dartmouth, was one of the higher ones, I was paying 40,000 a year. Now I know there's private med schools that charge upwards of $75,000 per year. Like that is outrageous. It's like that we're talking only like 15 years. And so not even that, 10 years. Um, I'm not as old as you think I am. Well, maybe I am, but anyway, it's the amount of inflation of med school tuition is outrageous, and I do think part of that problem is that med schools for a long, long time they could just hold out their hands and be like, "Money, please," to the federal government, and it's like, "Yeah, whatever you need, sure." And that probably did give med schools the feeling like, man, we could just charge anything for tuition. This is great. Let's just keep going. Who cares if it's just with inflation or not? Let's go past that. Let's just we can get the loans. Med students can get the loans for it. So that's a problem. All right, but the idea that, oh, all of a sudden, whoa, the cap is 200K, we gotta decrease tuition. That is not going to happen because there are so many other things so many other places that med students might be able to find the money to cover the bills, namely private loans. And so here's what I think is going to happen, because that's terrible in and of itself, because private loans, they um, often they're dependent on like whether or not you have a good credit score. Like how many of us had a good credit score or credit score? If you're lucky, you have a credit score. If you're even luckier, you have a great credit score at the age of 24, you know? Um, but if you don't have a good credit score, well, might not be able to qualify for a private loan for medical school. And then you have to go to a family member and have them co-sign on the loan. Well, what if you come from a really poor family and nobody has a credit score or a good credit score? Then what do you do? Well, maybe they'll still give you a loan, but it's going to be 9, 10, 11% interest. And that's just going to put you further behind, and you're already in training, not able to pay back loan debt until you're in your early 30s. And so it's going to, and could that influence people's specialty choices? Could it maybe just mostly just influence whether or not people even pursue med school if you can't afford it? And that's what I think is going to happen with this. I think it's not going to make med schools decrease tuition, because in their mind, they're like, well, either, you know, we'll just have more students that can pay cash who come from wealthy families, or they're just going to get private loans. And so I think you're going to see a shift in the like socioeconomic status of applicants and accepted applicants a little bit more toward the higher end, which is not the meritocracy that we were all promised what we'd have, that people were dying for to have, just, admissions based purely on merit. It's no longer best and brightest, right? It's best and brightest and richest. That's a problem. Like that we are potentially going to exclude applicants to medical school who are otherwise very well qualified, but they're essentially getting excluded just for financial reasons. That's not a meritocracy. for the record, I really don't even think, I think there's really not much of a there's a little bit of a meritocracy, but it's always been, med school admission's always been kind of skewed toward a higher socioeconomic status. People whose parents are physicians that can afford to put, a little bit money in and help out and pay, to cash for tuition, all that. It's easier. It is easier for rich kids, rich young adults who come from rich families to go into medical school. And I think this is just going to make it worse. And I said these things on social media in various ways over the last week or so, and a lot of some pushback. Some people disagree with me. They think this is a good thing just because why should our tax dollars finance the future rich people? And I mean, they're paying back the loans. This is not a handout. Like these are still loans, right? And so that's kind of ridiculous. But also, people who think, well, if what you're saying is true, and some students will will just not be able to apply for medical school, well, you're decreasing demand for med school, and that should decrease the price based on the laws of supply and demand. But again, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants every year to every single med school. And so I don't think that there's ever going to be a demand issue, because medicine, for all its faults, being a doctor, you'll make a good living. All right. You may not make as good of a living as they were, even 10 years ago, but you're going to be fine. You're in a stable profession. We're always going to have a need for doctors. And you make a good living. All right. You may not be wealthy. Oh, it depends on your definition of wealth, but you're going to work for your money for sure. And so there's always going to be people wanting to go into med school. And so the demand, this is not going to affect demand enough to force schools to lower their tuition. That's the point. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope that this results in tuition decrease. I would love nothing more than to see tuition come down, because it is outrageous, way too high. But I'll believe it when I see it. You can't, just again, when it comes down to it, when has anything in U.S. healthcare ever gotten cheaper? And that includes the cost of medical education. It's all related. It's all related. Plus, you have the fact that a lot of these academic medical schools have lost grant funding for research. So you think they're gonna relax their grip on tuition rates after they've already lost millions of dollars in research funding? Come on. That's the kind of, that's the disconnect. Like, I don't think a lot of people don't like realize this. But I'll hand it to, maybe it'll slow the ascent of tuition. We can all hope that. Like, that's entirely possible. I don't know. We'll see. Let's take a break.
Hey, Will.
Hey, what's up?
I've been thinking, the U.S. healthcare system, it needs some improvement.
Yeah, there's room for improvement.
Sure. It's a confusing, scary place for everybody involved.
Absolutely.
Physicians, families, patients, everybody.
And I've experienced it from both sides, right? I'm a physician. I've also been a patient. So I wanted to use my platform to give people practical education, really the only way that I know how, by making jokes. So Dr. Glockenflecken's really fun and super uplifting guide to American healthcare is out, and it's a free resource that includes all my videos from the 30 Days of Healthcare series, alongside deeper explanations, also reliable facts, emphasis on reliable.
Yes.
All right. Figures, numbers, insights into how each of us can fight for a more humane, better healthcare system. Also, it has jokes.
Did you mention the jokes?
I did. Jokes. Okay. Yes, definitely jokes.
Well, this guide is great for anyone looking to learn more about U.S. healthcare, but especially if you are experiencing it from the clinician side for the first time.
That's right.
We really hope you'll check it out.
Get the free guide sent straight to your inbox by signing up for our mailing list, glockenflecken.com/healthcare. Enjoy. Kristen, I got to tell you about a new podcast that every clinician should know about.
Ooh, tell me.
This is the Sepsis Spectrum. It's
Okay.
by the Sepsis Alliance and critical care educator Nicole Kupchik. This is really important. Each episode is about confronting blind spots in sepsis and antimicrobial resistance education. A lot of this stuff usually doesn't make it into textbooks or compliance training.
That's weird because it's super important.
Yeah, everybody needs to know about this stuff. You can listen to the Sepsis Spectrum wherever you get your podcast or watch it on the Sepsis Alliance's YouTube channel. To learn about how you can earn free nursing CE credits just by listening, visit sepsispodcast.org. All right, now you guys got me thinking about loans. Well, I thought I'd maybe share like what my student loan journey real quick. And I remember vividly because I've spent a lot of years thinking about loans, acquiring loans, and paying back loans. So I graduated med school at Dartmouth. And if you're wondering, like, why did you go to the most expensive medical school? I went there for love, okay? I went there because my beautiful, wonderful wife, Kristen Flannery, Lady Glockenflecken, decided we were both in college at Texas Tech University. And she decided she wanted to go to Dartmouth because she is very smart for grad school in cognitive social neuroscience, fMRI stuff, looking at emotions, and just very, very smart, very smart. Stuff that there's no way I could do. It's very much in the neurologist's wheelhouse. And so I was all set to go to a state school in Texas, UT Houston. I was admitted. My tuition was going to be $9,000 a year. And Kristen got into Dartmouth. She's like, let's go there. So I applied and I wrote them a bunch of letters and eventually convinced them to let me in so I could pay $40,000+ per year in tuition. So it wasn't a logical choice, but it was a choice, and it was a choice that actually ended up saving my life. That's the way I think about it. Yeah, I could have gone I could have stayed in Texas. We probably would have broken up, and then who would have saved me when I had a cardiac arrest 12 years later? So this kind of forks in the road that you never know, how one decision will impact your life. But anyway, so I went to Dartmouth, and my tuition upon graduation, my student loan bill, I should say, $273,000. Now that includes living expenses. I mean, you have to realize that with med school loans, like it's not just tuition you're paying for because you are not working. You are paying them everything, and you have to get loans unless you have someone that's paying your living expense. That's where the rich parents, come into play. If you don't have that luxury, then you're getting loans to pay for your living expenses. Anything, food, all the thing. You're not working because med school, I'm not saying you can't work during med school or have like a side gig that you're doing, but it is very, very busy. It's extremely hard to make money on the side while you're in med school. You're learning to be a doctor. And man, you're like learning the Krebs cycle over and over again. It's hard. It's hard stuff. And so, I all this and my bill at the end of my 4 years of medical school, it was nothing to compare to what it is now. I see posts of people that have $400,000-$500,000 in student loan debt. Again, it's just rising and rising. And so anyway, I graduated. And I immediately started doing income-based repayment. So I paid just a certain percentage of what my income was. That basically it didn't cover. No, so I deferred. You can defer. Maybe I was able to defer interest. I'm trying to remember. What it came down to was I was maybe paying some nominal amount, a small amount. Interest was still accruing on top of that. I wasn't even paying down the interest through residency training. I couldn't. We had a kid. Two kids. I had my second kid in residency. So that by the time I finished training and I no longer qualified for income-based repayment, I I remember seeing this. My total student loan debt was $321,000. So I gained 40 plus $1,000 in interest during my residency years. And if you have 400,000, like you're probably acquiring an additional 75,000 in interest during that time. So these are the massive, massive amounts of debt. And so what I immediately did was I knew I was going into private practice after residency. So once I finished training, right away I refinanced because federal interest rates at that time were 6.7%, which seems like a great rate now compared to what people are getting down. Now it's 7 to 8%. So anyway, I refinanced with a bank out in Portland, Oregon, and I was able to get a 2.95% on my 320,000. And that's like the first bit of luck with student loans that I ever achieved, that I was able to refinance at that rate, because I have held on to that rate like grim death. I have not paid extra. I just make the payments because it's such a low rate, and I don't want to get into personal finance. I'm not the best person for that, but I do know that if you get a low rate, just let it run out. All right, because your money, you can probably put that other places that's just a little bit better, gives you a better return, whether it's other debt or investing it or whatever. So anyway, now it's 2025. I started repayment in full. I want to say it was 2018. Yeah, 2018. So we're going on like 6 or 7 years of full repayment. I pay $2,800 per month, $2,800 per month, and now I'm down to 150,000. So I've like just about, yeah, I've cut it in half, a little bit more than half. So there you go. It's like it's just it's such a. But I hope that gives people perspective, like on how long it takes. And I'm in a high paying specialty. Like I make more than the vast majority of physicians by virtue of being a private practice ophthalmologist. So you have people with the same amount of debt as I am or more who are making half as much as I do. You can imagine how hard that is. So the 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 idea that all physicians are uber wealthy and they're doing okay, but let's not get it twisted. We're not like uber wealthy people. If we wanted to be uber wealthy, we would have gone into finance, not something that put us into this amount of debt. Like, don't cry for physicians. We're doing okay, but it's important to have this context when we are talking about the impact that changes in student loans have on people in the medical profession. All right. Okay, that's enough about student loans. All right. I think I'm due to finish I think like within the next 5 years. My original idea was like I wanted to be done. I wanted to be student loan debt free by the age of 40, which I'm like 4 months away from 40. I'm not going to get there, but that's okay because I don't want to. I don't want to lose that interest rate. I just keep it. Just keep it. Just let it go. All right, let's do some questions now. All right, so I'll do one question real quick, and then we'll take another break before we do some eyeball stuff. All right, so the most recent video that was published was, or the most recent episode on our YouTube channel at Glockenfleckens, by the way. Go check it out. Leave a comment. I'd love to see the comments. Was optometrist versus ophthalmologist. What's the real difference? People liked hearing that. I think it's very confusing, all the different types of medical professionals out there. So I hope that was helpful for those of you who see an eye doctor. I don't know if I ever mentioned like the 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 initials. So like MDs, like ophthalmologists are MDs or DOs, and then optometrists are ODs. That's how you know. If you look at someone's name on their website, that's how you know the difference between a physician, MD, DO, and an optometrist, um, OD. And so people I think found it interesting, and I had one optometrist reach out and say that we actually have more specialties. So I talked about this kind of subspecialties within optometry that you can do like an additional training and focus on: low vision, ocular disease, contact lens. Um, um, and there's other ones that I just wasn't aware of. So you could do like myopia control. You could do neuro. There's vision rehab, glaucoma. So there's lots of different things. But again, the bottom line is we work well together. And don't let anybody tell you that we're enemies because we're not. We're friends. I have optometry friends, and optometrists have ophthalmology friends. We're friendly. We're friendly with a few rare exceptions out there, but in general, we're happy with each other. Okay, this is a great comment I got from at the 1918 Lynn. How did I, a geologist with no medical background or education beyond an undergraduate biology degree, end up in the habit of regularly listening to an ophthalmologist podcast during my workday? Eyes are gross. That's how he ended the comment. Uh, okay. Lynn, I assume your name is Lynn. Uh, I agree. Eyeballs are gross, but thank you anyway for watching Knock Knock Eye episodes. I really appreciate you, and I'm glad you're. Um, I think a geologist sounds really cool, and so I don't know. I'm trying to come up with on the fly an overlap between what you do as a geologist and what I do as an ophthalmologist. We do have stones. You can get stones there's things called concretions. They're not true stones, but you can get concretions in the eyelid as a result of severe dry eye or blepharitis. You get these little calcium, what we call concretions, and they're actually very satisfying to pull out whenever they start causing problems for people. You can get lacrimal stones. Kinda like you can get, like, gallbladder stones, you get lacrimal stones. So I guess there's your overlap right there. Alright, but thank you for that comment, but I totally agree. If you've ever seen pink eye, it is disgusting. It's terrible. But thanks for sticking around, Lynn. Alright, let's take one more break, and we'll come back, talk a little bit eyeballs.
What you doing there, buddy?
I'm so glad you asked. I'm
Oh.
being a Demodex.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, that's what they sound like.
Those little mites?
Uh-huh. If you put a microphone in front of them, I'm sure they would probably, most likely, maybe sound like that.
You think so?
I don't really know.
Oh, well, let's see how much you do really know.
Oh, you're gonna quiz me?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
What are the only two main species of Demodex mites found in humans?
Type 1 and type 2.
Close. Demodex folliculorum, which are found in the eyelash follicles,
Okay.
and Demodex brevis, which are found in the meibomian glands.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Okay, next one. Next question.
Okay. Why do people with Demodex blepharitis often feel itchy eyelids first thing in the morning?
I know this, and because they avoid light and come out at night to mate.
Oh,
Yeah, they're mating on your eyelids while you're sleeping.
super.
How does that make you feel?
So gross.
And so people wake up with that itchy, irritated feeling because they've been moving around in the eyelash follicles all night.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
I'm surprised you even brought that up.
I know. I'm just trying to get used to these mites since Demodex blepharitis is such a common disease and
It
we keep talking
is,
about them.
and that's a big step. That's a big
Thank
step.
you.
There's a prescription eye drop, though, that's available for Demodex blepharitis. Did you know that?
Yes.
To learn more about these mites and Demodex blepharitis, visit miteslovelids.com for more info. Again, that's miteslovelids.com to learn more. This ad is brought to you by Tarsus Pharmaceuticals. All right, here we go. So, patient came in. Interesting thing came in. I try not to do that. I try to make sure you know that these are people. These are real people coming in. Interesting patient came in it actually was referred by an optometrist, one of the wonderful optometrists that we work with, for potentially hypertensive retinopathy. So, part of the reason that we see so many patients in clinic in an ophthalmology clinic is because when you have a vascular disease, whether it's high blood pressure or diabetes, or any kind of vasculitis, a systemic vasculitis, there's a lot of overlap with rheumatology and us. Anything that causes damage to the blood vessels, particularly these small blood vessels in the body, these patients often get sent for an eye exam because we can visualize the damage back there. It's really the only place in the human body where you can have a real good look at the arterioles, of the capillaries that give you a general sense of vascular health of the patient. So this patient came in with the biggest example, obviously diabetic retinopathy, but this patient came in with a report of hypertensive retinopathy. So if you have high blood pressure, it can cause um, bleeding in the retina, basically damage to the capillaries, the pericytes. They get leaky. They start leaking fluid, either blood or you can get lipid. You could get what are called, hard exudates, which is just a kind of extracellular fluid that leaks out from these vessels that are being pummeled by high pressure. You can also get people know about AV nicking. That's another sign of hypertensive retinopathy. And you see that in the back of the eye where the arteries cross over the veins. And because with hypertension and vascular disease, you can get an engorgement of the veins, and then if you have like an arterial cross over a vein, it can occlude the vein, causing the blood to back up, and you get this what we call a blood and thunder appearance to the back of the eye. It's a very dramatic thing. I'm talking about a central retinal vein occlusion. So go look at pictures of it. Central retinal vein occlusion, blood and thunder. That's the buzzword for that you might see on a on an exam. So anyway, hypertensive retinopathy. Those are the things I'm thinking about. As soon as I walk into the patient, I see what the referral's for. Like, okay, let's see what we got back here. I would say most of the time I might see, the mild changes, a little bit of AV nicking, maybe a little bit of beading, but probably not. Maybe a couple little micro aneurysms, which is where you have weakness of the wall of a capillary that causes it to kind of pooch out, and you get this little red bubble appearance in the back of the eye. That's called a microaneurysm. Um, but when I look back there, I saw the hard exudates surrounding this elevated area of a small little bubble in the retina that was right over a blood vessel. And when you see that, chances are you're dealing with a macroaneurysm. So it's like a microaneurysm, but bigger, affecting a larger artery that often will cause much more damage uh, to the surrounding retinal tissue. So you have this big retinal arterial macroaneurysm, so a big outpouching of one of the larger arteries in the retina. And that weakness, it causes leakage of fluid, and so we see all these hard exudates, which indicates fluid that's leaking into the retina, and that causes swelling in the retina, and it can cause a decrease in vision. So I saw this on the patient's exam, and first thing I did was get a photo. We have these wonderful machines you can get just very detailed photos of this. And this was a very lucky day because I had one of our wonderful retina subspecialists working in the clinic right next to me. He had the next set of rooms over. So I took a picture. And I was like, Chris, come take a look at this with me. And he rolled his eyes and said, okay. Because he was very busy. They see like retina surgeons, retina specialists, they see about twice the patients that we do in comprehensive ophthalmology. But no, he usually doesn't give me a hard time. So he's a good guy. So anyway, we went and looked at the photo, and he told me, yeah, it looks like a RAMA, which is retinal artery macroaneurysm. Fortunately, the swelling that was surrounding this abnormal blood vessel had not progressed into the center of the retina and the macula. So the patient was asymptomatic. But this is what the optometrist, the referring optometrist, saw back there. He saw all this swelling and just wanted to make sure, send to us. So we got additional testing, photos, and we're going to watch this. So the patient's going to come back in 2 to 3 months, and we're going to retake the pictures and see if there's any progression of this fluid closer to the fovea. If it does progress, which it might not, but if it does, then the patient will start noticing either distortion in the retina or just a frank decrease in the central vision. Just like a big blurry spot right in the center of the vision. And it wouldn't fluctuate. That's a big part of this. Once you have this fluid build up, it's not going to go away. So I always tell patients it's like you have this constant, perhaps enlarging area of blurriness that does not come and go. If that were to be the case, on the next visit, it's getting worse. Or maybe she calls a month from now, is like, oh, I can tell it's getting worse. She comes in, we take more pictures, and then what you can do is it's called a fluorescein angiogram. So you inject a little bit of dye into an IV, through an IV, and then you take pictures of the retina, and you can see the dye coming into all the vasculature of the retina and then leaving the vasculature of the retina. So it's a time lapse photos you get, and that'll show you where and how much fluid is leaking from this macroaneurysm. Super cool. And what that helps you with is treatment, because sometimes you can just do a little bit of laser treatment to stem the flow of that fluid and treat the macroaneurysm and keep it from further affecting the vision. And eventually, all that fluid will resorb. It'll resolve. So anyway, that's the plan. That's what we're hoping to see. Hopefully, it doesn't get any worse, and you can just kind of leave this. And the other thing for the patient is making sure you talk to them about maintaining good control of the blood pressure. So making sure they're taking care of their diet, using their antihypertensive medications as prescribed by their doctor, and yeah, I send my little letter back to the referring physician. Well, actually, this time I was referring optometrist and the primary care doctor because they both need to know what's going on. That's it. That was the most exciting thing. Nothing real crazy, but it got some good pictures. I love taking the pictures. That's what is so awesome about ophthalmology. One of the many things is that you can almost always take pictures of what you're seeing on exam and just show the patient. I just pull up this beautiful photo of the patient's retina and just like look at it. Sometimes that's all we do is just look at it. Let's just look at your beautiful retina together and talk about the changes and what's going on. And it's really helpful. When people can just see what's being treated, see the thing that's causing their vision loss. I always show their unaffected, their normal eye first, like this is the normal anatomy. And then I pull up this diseased retina, and it's sometimes it's kind of a shock, but the purpose of it is not to shock. The purpose of it is to show, okay, look, you can see the pathology here. This is what we're treating. This is how we're going to treat it. It just allows the patient to much better understand sometimes these very complex things like exudative macular degeneration, and they by seeing it, just understand it better. And so fortunately, we have that luxury, which is why for a long time I've thought that internal medicine seems so hard because you can't like look at the stuff that you're treating. I don't know how you guys do it. It seems really hard. And then you got to explain that to the patient. That seems even harder. So, more power to you, hospitalists and internal medicine doctors. I could not do what you do. I'm not smart enough. I will stand by that fact. I am not smart enough. I can only handle an organ that's no longer than 30 millimeters at the most. And that's it for Knock Knock Eye. Thank you all for listening. Go listen to this or watch this on YouTube at Glaucomfleckens. All right. I will read those comments. I may not address every comment, but leave me some topic ideas if you have some things about your eyeballs that you want me to discuss. I'm happy to get some ideas from you guys. I am your host, Will Friendly, also known as Dr. Glaucomflecken. Thanks to executive producers Aaron Corney, Rob Dolman, and Shanti Brook. Editor engineers Jason Portizo. Our music is by Omer Binsby. Knock Knock High is a human content production. We'll see you next time, everyone.
Knock, knock. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching the episode. You can find more on that playlist over there. If you prefer to listen, or you just had your eyes dilated, you can binge full episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Or join the party over on Patreon, where you get early access episodes, hang out with us, get lots of exclusive bonus content. Help you subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think.